Part 89. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 889. The more Luo Fei heard, the more anxious he felt. At the same time, I was a little dazed. What is the situation between her and Han Yi now? Can't she do that, and always wanted to maintain the current model? Yan Ji hung up the phone, and by the way glanced at the time on the mobile phone. Seeing that Luo Fei was asleep with her eyes closed, she pressed the call button on her chair and let the driver stop in the next service area. Luo Fei opened his eyes and asked Yanj, "What's wrong?" Yanj shook his head, "It's nothing, I just want to go down." Luo Fei looked at her eyebrows. "Is it uncomfortable to take a car? Why not find a hotel and rest for a while at high speed?" "It's okay, it's not that serious." Luo Fei lowered her eyes slightly, and her eyes fell on her hand holding the mobile phone. "Qingming, between you and Han Yi, haven't you thought about the future?" He felt that he had asked too many questions, but his words were stuck in his throat, and he couldn't settle without asking them. He didn't know what kind of psychology he was asking. "I hope she can set aside her life like the old man and Han Yi to start a happy life again. But, I hope she can tell him that there is no other relationship between her and Han Yi." Yan Ji's fingers slowly and repeatedly touched the mobile phone that was slightly hot because of long phone calls. She said slowly while waiting for Luo Fei's uneasy, "Brother, do you think that I am shameless in doing this?" "Shameless? It's scum." She didn't wait for Luo Fei to respond, chuckled, and said, "I also know that I'm shameless and scumbag, but I can't change it, and that's what I have in my life. Brother, if you marry your wife in the future, don't marry me like this. It's too scheming, too selfish and shameless." Yan Ji looked at Luo Fei with a serious look. "I am the negative example of the kind of good wife. Like me, marrying a family who would be frustrated when entering the house would be at odds." Luo Fei was stabbed by her words, and her smiling appearance even made him feel helpless at this moment. He reached out and stroked her head. "Qingming, you are fine." Yanj interrupted him immediately and said with a smile, "That's because you think of me as your sister, but in fact, you should know that I'm a bad woman." She laughed more and more. "Luo Fei, you are too simple, really, you don't even know how frivolous I am outside." From a young age, Luo Fei has participated in numerous speeches. In front of anyone, he can talk freely if he wants. But in front of her, she was full of words but couldn't say a word. At the service area, Yanj walked around for a while before getting on the bus. The car continued on the road, and probably both were tired and didn't talk much. It was getting gloomy and I didn't know when it started to drizzle. I don't know how long after that, the car suddenly made a sudden brake, and then there was a loud noise. When Luo Fei was awake from the coma, there was an urgent call in her ear. Luo Fei, wake up soon, Luo Fei." She was so anxious that she could hear the concerns about him in her voice. Luo Fei felt like he was in a dream. He had hoped that she would call his brother, but now, listening to her crying to Luo Fei, he felt that there was nothing better than the words she called. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 890. Luo Fei's face was slapped, and she lay all over him, trying to hug him. Luo Fei didn't want to open her eyes, she wanted to hear her urgent call again. "But now, I have to be sober." With this open eye, a shocking response came. "He is not in a dream. He and she had a car accident." Seeing Luo Fei's eyes open, Yanj hurriedly asked, Luo Fei, how are you? Where is it uncomfortable? Can you still move? Let's get off the bus." Her voice was swift, and the whole person was still lying in his arms. But he wasn't infected by her eager and scared voice at all. In the deepest corner of the bottom of his heart, a small flower seemed to bloom slowly, and even with his heart, it seemed to be blooming. Seeing that Luofei still shouldn't answer, Yan Ji slaps on his face with another slap. Luofei, have you broken your brain? Her head was almost broken by her failure, and Luofei took a sigh of relief and immediately sat up, took her hand and rushed out the door. I'm fine. At this time, the car was rear-ended by the car behind it, and again, a bang, the door that was just opened was squeezed and deformed instantly, and one of Luofei's feet was caught on the door. He failed to pull out his feet a few times and simply turned his head and said to Yanj, "Can the door open over you? You go out over there." As he said this, he still glanced out of the broken glass. It was wet and slippery on rainy days, and there were serial cars hitting each other. And there will be cars coming back constantly. To Luofei's surprise, several of the cars in front were completely deformed, and the voices of people crying all around were miserable and shocking. Can't stay in the car anymore. If a car keeps crashing in the back, the car will sooner or later become the state of the car in front. While trying to pull his feet, Luofei quickly said to the song, "Hurry up." Yan Ji froze and pushed the door beside her. After the door opened, she turned away. Luofei watched her leave so bluntly for a moment, still a little surprised. But at this time there was no time to think about anything else. He bent down and tried to rip the door of the owner's foot. When the blood dipped in his hands, he felt the pain on his feet. Wouldn't this waste it? There are some accidents in life, but today's accidents are really something that Luofei never thought of. The only good thing is that she has nothing. He looked up and tried to see where she was going. He just forgot to remind her not to go into the gap in the traffic. It is better to go to the roof. Thinking about it, there was a banging sound outside the door. He glanced at her as she found a small hammer from the back of the car and smashed the door. The door remained motionless, and Yanj crawled in and nestled at Luofei's feet again, smashing the deformed door of the owner's feet. One side said quickly, "The driver was unconscious. I just woke him up. The steering wheel got stuck in his chest. I can't move for the time being. I can only wait for the rescuer to come. Don't worry, I will help you find a way pull it out." After speaking, he took off his blouse and tied it tightly to Luofei's ankle. Luofei stared at the back of Yanj. His throat rolled, but in the end there was nothing, and he silently stooped to get the small hammer in her hand. "I'm strong, I'll come." You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 891. Yan Ji handed the hammer to Luofei and took out a large wrench to try to pry open the deformed door. With two people working together, it took 9 tigers and 2 tigers to finally pull Luofei's feet out. Get out of the car. Those who are lucky all around are helping to move those who are stuck in the car. Although the rescue vehicle did not come, after a brief panic, everyone began to organize themselves and rescue others in an orderly manner. Yanj helped Luofei to a safer position at the forefront, helped Luofei to rebandage her feet, and joined the ranks of saving lives with everyone. 32 vehicles collided in this accident. Luofei's last life died in this car accident. Luofei did not leave with the ambulance at first. He was so anxious that he had been waiting for Yan Ji to come out of the crowd, and then left with her in the ambulance. The driver's injury was also serious, but fortunately he recovered his life. In comparison, Luofei's injury was not a major injury. His foot was crushed and a toe was broken. Most of Yan Ji's body were scratches that he later suffered when he was rescued. The local hospital's medical level was limited, and the hospital was overcrowded, and the ambulance was unable to turn around. So after the wound was bandaged, Luofei drove with Yanj to a big city next door. Luofei did not return to Beijing, nor did his words. During his time in the hospital, he always looked after him before and after running. The old man called Luofei several times to talk, saying that she didn't say a big greeting and went outside for a vacation, and this time she didn't know which little white face she was carrying. At that time she was at his bedside, helping him peel the apple, and he gave her a secret glance. Fortunately, he didn't press the speakerphone on his mobile phone. She wanted to hear that she couldn't hear them. After staying in the hospital for more than half a month, until his injury was almost healed, only his toes need to go home to rest, and Luo Fei was discharged from the hospital. After leaving the hospital, I went to the room opened by Yanji in the hotel next to the hospital. When Luo Fei was sitting, Yanji was packing his luggage in the room. The incredibly large cactus at the bedside was very eye-catching, and she kept talking to her ears, asking him to pay attention to it. The wound cannot touch the water, and it is best not to walk too early. If you want to go to the company, you take a wheelchair and go back and hire a small assistant to take charge of your life. His eyes kept following her, she said so many times, but he couldn't hear it all at once. For the first time, he had a ridiculous thought in his mind: if only the injury he had focused on would be better, so that he could return to Beijing later. Maybe his eyes were too hot. Yan Song looked up and looked at him in wonder. What's wrong? I haven't spoken any more, is there any discomfort? While talking, he got up and walked in front of him, reached out and touched his forehead. No fever, AFI, you go back and do a whole body check. You are so smart that it is a pity to get hit. Luo Fei suddenly raised his hand and pinched Yan Ji's wrist. Those words that were brewing in my heart before I could say them, I saw her smiling and said, Afei, today is my birthday, have you forgotten it? When he reached his mouth, he rolled back completely. Hesitated, he said, I really forgot. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 892. In fact, she did not forget. In fact, Luo Fei secretly prepared a gift for her. But now, to the dark and clear eyes of Shang Yanj, he seemed to see the embarrassing himself from those eyes. He let go of her hand slowly, and laughed after her. I must have broken my head, and you forgot your birthday. Yan Ji touched his head. You've been forgetting since childhood, I'm used to it. His lips moved, but he did not refute. In fact, I always remember it, and I always remember it very clearly. Yanj sat on the sofa beside Luo Fei and started counting with his fingers. I haven't had a big meal for a few days. I want to go out and have a good meal tonight. What do you think? Okay, Luo Fei said with a smile. Eat what you want, I pay. Yanj seemed to be cheap, and laughed. I can eat you poor in one night, and I can eat up all the money to marry your daughter-in-law. He looked at her with a smile, his throat rolled, but he didn't speak. In the end, I didn't have a big meal. I asked the little girl at the front desk. There is a night market not far from the hotel. He was pushed by her in a wheelchair, and the two went to a string restaurant and ate and drank beer. Oh, she's drinking beer. He has so many wounds on his wounds that he can't eat. She won't allow him to eat. After eating, I went through the snack street thoroughly. Many local snacks have never been heard. She couldn't eat anymore. When she saw it, she bought a copy and put it on his leg. When he went back, his leg all the food is eaten. She drank too much beer and was a little bit drifty while walking, which made him worry a lot, and from time to time on the way back, she turned her head to look at her. Fortunately, I returned to the hotel. Yanj put all the rows of eating on the coffee table, while eating with interest, watching TV, eating delicious, and feeding Rofi a bite. Luo Fei asked her, do you want anything on your birthday? After taking a bite of the spicy song on the neck of the spicy duck, the spicy eyes are full of water vapor. She shook her head when she heard the words, no, or else, watch a horror movie together? Do you dare to watch it? Luo Fei certainly dared to watch. But she didn't wince in his arms while watching as he thought. She looked at it and fell asleep on the sofa. She seemed happy today and drank a lot of wine. When she fell asleep, her cheeks were flushed all the way to the back of her neck. He pushed the wheelchair closer to her, and there were still weird and startled ghosts on the TV, but all his mind was attracted to her. It was only when she was asleep that he dared to look at her like this. He didn't know when he was born, he just knew that when he found out, he was already in it. With so many people in the world, one by one can be stable to the present, relying not only on the law to maintain order, but also on the self-control of everyone. What is the difference between a person without control and a livestock? Luo Fei never thought that one day he would be unable to restrain his desire. Turning off the TV, he gently called her, Qingming, Qingming. She snorted, but her eyes did not open. Luo Fei poked her face with her fingers. Her face was tender and soft, and she had a kind of burn that could burn his fingers, so that he didn't dare to stay too much on her face. Even if he poked like this, she still didn't react at all. He had to get up and hug her. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 893. Although it is still not convenient to walk on heels, it is not difficult to carry her from the sofa to the bedroom. In a short way, Lowe's walked slowly, on the one hand, because of his feet, and on the other hand, he didn't want to let her go in his arms. But this road is too short, even if it goes slowly, there will be an end in the end. At the bedside, Lors gently put her up. He did not leave immediately, but propped his hands on the bed, staring at her sleeping quietly. When she fell asleep, she looked very well and quietly. A soft and tender ball. Holding it, I wanted to rub her into my body. When she was awake, her clear eyes seemed to him a silent warning. Warned him not to cross the thunder pool. Now, she closed her eyes and fell asleep, and the so-called warning gradually went out. He stared, finally unable to restrain, bowed his head and kissed her forehead. Just kiss, just kiss. But this one is out of control. Lips fell along her forehead and landed on her lips again. The smell of food remained on her soft lips. Luo Zi closed his eyes. It was just such a shallow touch, but it made him have the illusion that he had tasted delicious. When he touched it, he couldn't leave again. Just want to be like this, forever, forever. After finally calming down the undulating heart and wanting to leave, she suddenly opened her eyes at this time, and her hands were wrapped around his neck. Lors bowed her head in horror, staring at her watery eyes and staring at him innocently and indifferently. He faced her eyes like this, his frantic heart was stagnant at this moment, and he was full of shame and blame throughout the whole process. He could not wait to slap himself. Relieving her emotions, Lowe's asked her in a low voice, Qingming, can I help you wipe your face? She didn't respond, just stared at him. Those clear eyes seemed to shine through all the confusion in his heart. He was staring at her like that, and the solitary heart began to jump again, even his face turned red. There was sweat in the palms of his hands, and he was sweating all over. He seemed to be scooped out of the water, embarrassed and panicked. He opened his mouth to apologize to her. At this moment, she suddenly raised her head, leaned closer to his face, bit his open lips, and slid her tongue into her mouth. Luo Fei did not dare to move. She was stiff and felt she should push her away, but could not bear it. Dizzy in his head, he felt like an electric shock. He seemed to feel it. His ears buzzed, leaving him without any thoughts, all her senses were hers. Her body was close to him, and her tongue was in his mouth. This feeling, he only read in books, never thought that between men and women, there would really be such a so-called electric shock. The first experience was with her again. It was so wonderful. He couldn't bear a little resistance, and even he was eager to move. I hope she can continue. She continued, entangled in his body like water grass, tied him a little tight, and gnawed him a little, making him unable to struggle. He didn't want to struggle. Finally unable to support, hugging her and fell to the bed together. It's like being planted in the water. Entangle, tumble, blend. No matter what time, he was tight, holding her tightly. Even if it was a flood that could wipe out the flying ash he washed, as long as he could hold her, he would not resist. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 894. A night of joy is like spring/dream that Luo Fei often dreams of late. Only this time, everything in the dream was too clear. When he was awake, he subconsciously went fishing. But nothing was caught. Sweet dreams wake up. The duvet around was empty, without her soft body. He was all empty, sat up quickly, looked around, and the suitcase belonging to her in the room was gone. If the dream is heaven, Luo Fei feels like he's gone to at this moment. Panic, jumping very fast. Where did she go? He hurried to find his cell phone and wanted to call her, and the notepaper under the cell phone fell into his eyes. Brother. There is something wrong with my crew. I'll go back first. I called the old man and he will send someone to pick you up. She called his brother. Instead of screaming at Luo as he did last night. These words not only did not reassure Luo Fei, but made him even more panicked. He called her the first time. Luo Fei's heart at this moment was like boiling in boiling water, and it was extremely painful. I wonder if she will answer the phone. I don't know what her mood is. I don't know what she will do. Unexpectedly, the phone rang, and the phone was picked up. She smiled over there. Brother, I was about to get on the plane. Did you just wake up? Did you have breakfast? Her voice made no difference on peace days. It was as if she and he had never happened to last night. Qingming Luo Fei called her hoarsely, and the depressed emotions erupted at this moment. Qingming, will I marry you? These words could not be spoken. She interrupted him, brother, I'm going to shut down. Anything to wait for when I get off the plane. Before he speaks, the phone is beeping. Luo Fei was holding his cell phone, screaming as if he had lost his soul. He wants to marry her. This thought was buried in the deepest part of my heart unknowingly. I thought I would never see the sun. The wind and rain rolled wildly, the rain dripped, and the wind and sand were washed away, and these words were sent to his eyes. Makes him clearer. He wants to marry her. Luo Zi arrived at Luo Fei's hotel before noon. When he saw Luo Fei, he flew up and held Luo Fei in his arms. This is probably the only hug belonging to his father that he has received since his memory. Are you going to scare me? Are you? Luo was shaking with Luo Fei's body shaking. You really scared me to death. Do NT take a plane? What car do you take? Are you there? I thought you were brilliant. Luo Fei opened his mouth and said nothing. Is this still the old man in his impression? At this moment, he felt strange fatherly love. The words he was preparing to have a good talk with the old man could never be said. Luo Zi has pushed Luo Fei's wheelchair toward the door and said, I'm scared because of your heart disease. You have so little worry from childhood to age, but don't get a ticket when I'm old. Big, I have a bad heart now and can't stand it. When he got into the elevator, Luo bent down to check Luo Fei's feet. It looks like it should be okay. In such a big car accident, you hurt one toe, and it's pretty big. Ha 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 ha. Laughing and laughing, knocking on Luo Fei's knee again. Damn, I'm really scared to death. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 895. Luo Fei stared at the white hair in the old man's hair, only to realize afterwards that the old man seemed really old. It turned out that the old man didn't care about him. It turned out that he was always called the old man, and he really called people old. Luo Fei did not call Yang again. His phone has been tightly held in his hand. Tightly squeezed. Instead, Yan Ji called Luo Fei as soon as he got off the plane. Did the old man go? Listening to her voice, Luo Fei lost her breath, and only uttered a huh. At the other end of the phone, she seemed relieved when she heard the words, and she was obviously worried about him. That's good, right? Did you call me before? Problems? Yes. He wants to marry her. He wanted to ask her if he wanted to divorce the old man and stay with him. He also wanted to tell her that he liked her and liked it very much. He liked her long ago. He didn't want to be her brother, he wanted to be her man, holding hands with her, and balding all his life. But these words stuck in the throat and could never be spoken again. His head seemed to be split in half of whom was entangled with him in bed trying to melt each other into the body, and the other half was crying and laughing at the old man. Those in the circle said that the old man spoiled his wife. Even Luo Fei's uncle's family was reminding him to be careful that the old man was so confused by his beauty that he didn't even recognize his own son. But the so-called pet in everyone's mouth just felt that the old man was whimpering and wanted to the grass. Only Luo Fei knew how old the old man was about her. If he is with her. Aftermath, I dare not think about it, nor can I think about it. The song on the other end of the phone didn't respond, so I called a few times. Brother? Luo Fei? Fei? Why not speak? The signal is not good. Hey, can you hear me? She called his Luo Fei's voice, but it was really nice. When he woke up this morning, he planned to listen to it all his life. But now, hearing her calling him, he felt guilty. He was so embarrassed that he hung up the phone. Luo Fei, who was brought back to Beijing by Luo Zi, was taken to the hospital again. Lors personally accompanied him through the various inspections, and it was not until he was sure that there were no sequelae to Lorfi, and Lors was relieved. When returning, Luo Zi, who was sitting in the car, finally breathed a sigh of relief and patted Luo Fei's shoulder. Your boy, in the future, you should call Laozi the first time. Shit, Laozi will never okay, that's your dear, too. Okay dear, I won't die if I answer your call. Returning from City X all the way, whether on the plane or in the car, the old man never stopped. Luo Fei knew that the old man was getting more and more embarrassed. The matter between the old man and her could pull him over and talk about the night. But Luo Fei was the first to realize that the old man was his father. When he was home, the old man called her again. The boy Luo Fei will have a blessing if he is dead. His driver is still lying in the hospital. He was so lightly injured, it was a miracle, obviously. You don't have to worry about things at home. You have to be careful about yourself. Don't take too many cars, you can't sit without night cars, and you have to fasten your seat belts. Luo Fei is fine. Her voice faintly passed into Luo Fei's ear at the end of the phone. I'm a bit busy at this time, I won't be able to go back. When I go back, our family will get together. Celebrate the death of Rodeo. The old man and her fluttering intimacy fluttered into Luo Fei's mind. At this moment, he was anxious to find a hole to drill into. So before she returned, Luo Fei went abroad with the excuse of expanding her business. If people are not restrained, what is the difference from animals? He has been a beast once, but he is not a beast. So he has to know how to restrain himself. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 896. When Luo Fei was abroad for 3 months, the old man suddenly called him. The old man with a husky voice cried without saying a few words, "She is pregnant. Did she kill her? She was so messy outside." I didn't say anything about her. Why did she take the wild seed so brightly? The Hanyi said that the child was his, and he came to me to show off. Afi, I'm really uncomfortable, I'm so uncomfortable. She said at the time that she couldn't get pregnant and let me ligate. I ligated without a word. How can she betray me now that I can't let her have children? How can she betray me? She's so poor. She's been running to the hospital for more than half a year. Why doesn't she feel bad about her body? Is it a matter of pregnancy? I didn't blame her for coming outside, but she's pregnant so casually now. You talk about her. Did you talk about whether she put me in the eyes or whether she remembered the promise she gave me? I hate her, I hate her. Luo Fei knew from the bottom of his heart that the old man was crying so badly before him. Perhaps as soon as he finished crying here, he turned around and reconciled with her. But at this moment, still say, you and her divorce, Dad, Qingming, and I have always regarded you as a father. You let her go, let her find her true lover, find her real family and happiness. When he said this, he held his breath. Even if he didn't hope, he still hoped that the old man would agree. At this moment, he even wanted to kneel in front of the old man and begged him, she likes Han Yi, just complete her. Dad probably heard this for the first time, but he completely ignored it, and he couldn't help crying. He was so angry that he screamed at Luo Fei, you fart, you obviously like me, and you have liked me since childhood. She is because I can't give her a child, I am awkward with me. When a woman reaches a certain age, she will shed motherly love. I like her very much. I know her. I understand her thoughts, but she is too dangerous to be pregnant. You didn't take it clearly as a relative. At this time, you advised me to divorce her. Do you want my life or her life? After the old man crackled a lot, he realized that there was no sound on the other end of the phone. He realized that no one in the world could understand him, and he suddenly sighed from his heart and begged to say to Luo Fei, I persuade her that she doesn't listen at all. You help me persuade her. You persuade her, okay. She is the most afraid of you since she was a child. You persuade her, and maybe she will listen. Is she afraid of him? Still afraid of him since childhood? Where does the old man come from, knowing that she was afraid of him from an early age? Luo Fei has been waiting for the old man to hang up the phone, but he has not responded to the old man's words. She is pregnant? Really pregnant? At that time abroad, she was ill in the place where he lived, and he took her to many hospitals, so no one knew her body better than him. She couldn't get pregnant at all. Why is she so wayward? What is the difference between her and suicide? Luo Fei didn't know what happened, he was shaking all over, and finally he understood the old man's crying mood. He forced himself to calm down and called her immediately. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 897. The song on the other side of the phone didn't answer the call. Luo Fei hit 3 times and she didn't answer. Later, she remembered that at this time, it should be in the middle of the night with her. She may still be asleep. So even if she was anxious, Luo Fei could only organize the language on Weibo and sent a few words to her. This feeling of not talking face to face is really bad. Luo Fei simply booked the earliest flight back to China. As soon as it dawned, he set off. After getting off the plane and turning on the phone, she found several missed calls. Luo Fei hurriedly called back. Her brisk voice rang quickly, Africa, is it okay to call? He hadn't heard this voice for more than 3 months, and it suddenly sounded in his ear, and he forgot to respond for an instant. AFI, AFI. Only then did Luo Fei react and said, where are you now? I'll find you. AFI, Did you come to me because I was pregnant? Yang said, you don't need to persuade me. Although this child was an accident, I never thought of killing it. She did not wait for Luo Fei to respond, and continued to say, Luo Fei, if you have relatives, even if you drift out, there is an old man who is your father and father, so that you can be concerned, and someone is concerned about you. I also want a loved one, and I want a loved one to care about me. Luo Fei didn't realize that she had left the child for this reason. He couldn't help but said lowly, I am your loved one. The romance on the phone laughed softly, AFI, do you really treat me as my sister? Her voice was bright and smiling, but he was asked by her words, and for a while she could not wait to find a hole in it. Qingming, I. Yang interrupted Luo Fei's words, Fei, can't you persuade me? I'm not a little girl, I know what I want, right now I'm a little busy, if there is nothing else, I'll hang up first. This woman clearly did not want to talk to him for a long time. But this matter is not trivial, not because she wants it. Luo Fei simply called the old man again and asked her where she was now. It took a long time for the old man to answer Luo Fei's phone, Ming. Ming is at home. She is so poor now and pregnant with her baby. Of course, she has to raise her baby at home, so I won't tell you. This tone. It was as if the old man who was crying on the phone last night didn't even appear. It seemed like he was the only one in focus from beginning to end. Luo Fei stared at the phone that was hung up. He was speechless. When he returned home, he saw her and the old man at home. Two people sat at the table, and the old man fed her bite at a bite. The picture looks harmonious. Luo Fei stood at the door, hesitating for a moment, not knowing whether he should go in and disturb them. It was an old man. When he turned around and saw Luo Fei, he immediately greeted and said, Luo Fei, you came back just right, you are obviously pregnant, and you can't live without people. The company's affairs are left to you. I will tell Luzu let him take you familiar with the work, and you will get started as soon as possible. The words fell back and asked the words, how does it taste this time? Unlike the imperative tone when she first spoke to Luo Fei, the old man faced her, her voice was gentle and flattering, and she completely changed her personality. Before the old man said the words, Yan Song covered his mouth and rushed to the bathroom. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 898. Luo Zi quickly followed Yan Ji, handing her towel, while gently patting her back to help her smooth. I can't eat it anymore. Yan Ji finished his vomiting and then looked up, and glared at Luo Zi with tears. I said that I can't eat anymore, you want me to eat, and I feel bad. I'm wrong. Luo Zi softly wiped her face and rubbed her back, admitting her guilt with sincerity and guilt. Don't you get angry. But you are pregnant now, you can't do nothing. You can't take it, and the baby in your stomach can't take it. Obviously, if you have anything else you want to eat, I'll find it for you. Luo Fei stood in the hall, and he heard the conversation between the two men in the bathroom. Last night, she cried and said she hated her, gritted her teeth and said that where did the old man who had to kill the child go? He was hesitant. It seems that the old man accepted the child. There was no family war between them because of the child's arrival. There is no need for him to intervene. The only thing he has to do is take over the old man's company so that the old man has more energy to take care of her. She wants this child, then, it will be. If there is a child that can make her feel troubled, if there is a child that can make her life normal, if there is a child that will make her feel happy, then all right. He was willing to do everything to make her happy and safe. It is not a matter of saying that having a child with a child. When Yanj was 4 months pregnant, her child had signs of miscarriage and she had to lie in bed. Eating and drinking Lazarus was all on the bed, not even turning over. Lors was in front of her every day and waited for her. Probably influenced by Yanj, he is also looking forward to this child of Yanj. This man, he was in the host's life, he adjusted the host into his loyal slaves, but in the end he abandoned the host and gave up. But this time, the character reversed. Even if you know that Yanj has put on him countless green hats, even if you know you are a happy father. Even if he was extremely miserable at times, in front of Yanj, he was still wholehearted, just to see the joy of Yanj. The chicken side, the man is really too cheap. He treats him as good, but he dislikes him, but he is so embarrassed to stick it. What kind of mentality does he have? Yanj, probably he also likes green hats. Chicken. Like a fart, this man named Luozi has secretly cried secretly in the bathroom countless times, because there is nothing bloody, or he might end up with her. Yanji did not see outsiders during pregnancy. Ruffy has seen her countless times. By the end, there were several resident doctors in the villa. But even so, Yanj failed to survive. On the day of the child's birth, she died of bleeding on the operating table, and never woke up again. Luofei learned that she was about to give birth, and he was still at the company meeting and rushed to his home. But at the villa, she was in a deep coma. Until the doctor announced her death, Luofei had not responded to the situation. Is she dead? How is this possible? He said that if there is a choice of two, he will only protect the adults first. Moreover, the doctor has always said that she is in good health. How could this be? When Luofei rushed in, he saw the old man sitting beside her bed, losing his spirits and becoming a bun.